Now, that's a formula for success, although the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the third best run defense in the NFL. They got a monster in the middle in Vita Vea, and you're going to have to run. And here he is, year one as a defensive coordinator. He's getting an opportunity for an interview. I don't.
Mac guys here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate our next guest for jumping aboard with us and giving us his insight. Former Philly guy, now Central Florida reporter for the Associated Press, covering the entire league these days rather than the Birds like he did for years, and also host of the Faith on the Field syndicated show. Our buddy Rob Maaddi hops aboard with us here on Birds 365. All right, Maaddi, start with this. What team won the most games in the National Football League this year?
Green Bay and Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and Tampa Bay. So they won the most games in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Why have I, for a week and change, had to listen to bring on the Bucs? That's who the Eagles want to play in the playoffs when they won the most games in the National Football League this year.
Yeah, it doesn't make much sense to me. I would have much preferred, if you're an Eagles fan, I would have much preferred to go to LA, take on the Rams, take on Sean McVay, who's never beat you in LA, where the Eagles are 2-0, and you just they cost themselves an opportunity to be the 2 seed by losing at home again to the 49ers. To me, that would have been the ideal matchup. I'd rather face Matthew Stafford than Tom Brady. But hey, if the Eagles fans want to face the Buccaneers, they're banged up. I guess that can be one reason why they're banged up. You want to be the man, you got to beat the man. You got to go down there and beat the championship, defending Super Bowl champion. So that's one element to it. And we've seen crazy things happen in sports. We saw crazy things happen last week in the NFL. So the best team doesn't always win. The Eagles are the better team. The Buccaneers are the better team. They're the superior team. But you always got a chance, man. You always got a chance.
Always got a chance, Rob, but the one number that stands out to me this week is 46 versus 1, and that refers to number 46 for Tom Brady, his 46th playoff game, number 1 for Jalen Hurts. You look at Jalen, his history at the college level. In a lot of ways, the college football national championship is bigger environment-wise than a first-round NFL playoff game, but that doesn't take into account the on-the-field part of it. I don't think the moment's going to be too big for him, but you gotta learn how to win in the NFL. Is that a fair assessment? And when you're going against a guy who's done it 46 times, and oh, by the way, he's won 34 of those, that's tough.
That's incredible, man. That's an incredible winning percentage. And we know what Tom Brady is. We know he's the GOAT. He's won 7 Super Bowls. Yes, he's lost 3 Super Bowls. But that's a fair point that you make, John. For Jalen Hurts, yes, we do know that the moment's not going to be too big for him. He's been in big games before. He's got tremendous poise. He's got excellent character. He's got great leadership ability. So all of that is there. The intangibles are there. But when you're on that field, on the road, and it's not the most hostile environment, I'm sure Eagles fans are going to travel well and be down here in Tampa and try and take over that stadium. And it's not going to be like going into playing against the Raiders back in the day, or the Dog Pound, Cleveland, or whatever, or Lambeau, or whatever it may be. But yeah, you do. You got to learn how to win in these playoff games. And what we've seen from the Eagles and how they've won their games so far, they've won their games against bad quarterbacks, mostly. They have not beat any of the upper echelon elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And they've done it through running the football. Now, that's a formula for success, although the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are the third best run defense in the NFL. They got a monster in the middle in Vita Vea. And you're going to have to run on the perimeter against this team, because you're not going to be able to go up the middle. He's a run stuffer right there. So Jalen Hurts is going to have to make some plays. They haven't had to win a game in which Jalen Hurts won that game for them. They haven't won a game yet where Jalen Hurts has thrown for 4 touchdown passes and 400 yards. That's not a knock against Jalen. That's just that the Eagles haven't had that formula for winning yet. this may be that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when you're facing Tom Brady, where you're going to have to match them point for point, where you're going to have to match them. And I don't think the Eagles are equipped to do that. The best way for them to win this game is to dominate the clock and control the ball for 43, 44 minutes and try and get a turnover or two. That's going to be tough to do.
Going to tap into your familiarity with the Bucs, that you're a Central Florida guy these days. Of course, they won the Super Bowl last February. Different teams handle it different ways. Some enjoy the ride both all the way there and afterwards, and don't come back quite as prepped and ready as they need to be, and the whole rubber chicken off-season dinner parade. Others come back even hungry. If they get one, they want to have that second one. You never know how it's going to happen. Before it's happened, judging the Bucs for this entire year since Tom Brady dropped the trophy into the drink down there in Tampa, how have they handled this post-Super Bowl win season? Are they as good to go this year as, say, they were last year, Brady's first in Tampa?
Yeah, I think they're a better football team than they were last year because it's Brady's second year. He's more familiar with the system and the offense. And I've been impressed by what I've seen. I've been around them a lot. I'm heading down there right after we get done chatting right now. And I've been impressed by the way they handle everything. It's a very business-like atmosphere. And I think it starts with 12. I think Tom's the one who brings that attitude to them, that hunger, that desire, that they want to win again. And they go about everything practice-wise, and you see them afterwards, after practice, doing extra things because this is a team that's determined. There hasn't been a repeat champion in the NFL since Brady did it way back in 03, 04, and he really wants. He's hungry for that number 8, and I think all those guys on the team are in. They all bought in to what he's bringing to the table, and I've seen a team that hasn't been lackadaisical, that hasn't been complacent, that hasn't been, hey, we won ours, we got our title, we got our championship, everything else is gravy. It's no, we want more. We want to be that team. They know they got a limited amount of time with Tom Brady. He could decide to ride off into the sunset after this one. He could do it next year. So they know this is their window of opportunity, and they're trying to cash in.
Rob, you've been down there obviously quite a bit around that team. So how has the offense changed since losing Chris Godwin, who was their big, third down threat? He was sort of that chain mover. And then how have they handled sort of the nonsense around Antonio Brown? But those are playmakers. I mean, let's be honest. And when you lose playmakers like that, it's got to affect the offense, even with Tom Brady, somewhat, at least, I would think.
Yeah, losing Chris Godwin was huge, and then you lose Antonio Brown, who, when you look back at the first matchup against the Eagles, Antonio, I think he had 9 or 10 catches in that game. But they didn't have in that game was Rob Gronkowski, and they have Gronk now, and I've seen them rely more on him. Now, part of all those targets and all those catches that Gronk had last week had to do with getting him some of the incentives, but it was also he was open, and he's the guy that the offense is going to go through. Now, in Mike Evans, you got one of, I think, guys, I actually think Mike Evans is underrated. When you look at you look around the league and you talk about some of the best wide receivers in the NFL, his name doesn't come up, but all he does is put up numbers. He's been phenomenal for this team, especially with Tom Brady. But you're seeing the other guys. 2 weeks ago was Cyril Grayson stepping up in the Antonio Brown game, and he's got tremendous speed. However, last week he went down with a hamstring injury. Rashard Perryman last week, I see him making a sideline leaping, twisting, toe drag catch, and these are the guys that they're going to have to rely on: the Rashard Perrimans, the Scotty Millers, the tight ends beyond Gronk. Whether OJ Howard gets a little bit more involved, Cameron Brate. And of course, Mike Evans is going to be the big go-to guy for Brady, but it's become spread out. It's always been an offense where he's tried to spread the ball out because he had so many weapons. Now you got to do it because you're trying to make up for the fact that you don't have a guy in Chris Godwin who's going to consistently move the chains for you, and Antonio Brown.
One of the guys, it looks like they're going to get back from injury, who missed the last couple of games, was Leonard Fournette, who was a key component to their playoff run last year and winning the Super Bowl to earn his name, Playoff Lenny. No guess as to what Lenny's going to bring to the table until he gets out there on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, he will have missed 3 games, Jody, and he's a running back, and you don't know what he's going to look like. I'm going to be interested to see what we can out of him coming up now in about an hour and 20 minutes as they go through a little bit of their practice warm-ups, but we're not going to be out there the whole time, so you can't really get a feel for what he's doing. Now, I saw him last week running around and doing some things and trying to get back out there, and Ronald Jones probably isn't going to be a go, so it's going to be Leonard Fournette, playoff Lenny, Lombardi Lenny, whatever. He's got to do a new nickname every week for those guys. Le'Veon Bell last week finds the end zone, and he's – yeah, I don't think Le'Veon is quite there yet. Now they're going to throw the ball to him a little bit sometimes coming out of the backfield. And Keyshawn Vaughn is a guy who's got some speed, and they may have Giovanni Bernard back, and he's kind of like the third down back, and he's somebody coming out of the backfield who can maybe make those 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7 stretch, continue to move the chains and continue keeping drives alive. So they're as to me, it's like a running back by committee out of necessity because of the injuries they've had back there. I mean, it's a banged up running back unit. It's a banged up wide receiver core. So maybe, Jody, that's why fans like, hey, bring on the Buccaneers. But I think they still got it. As long as you got number 12 under center, it makes up for a lot of deficiencies.
Yeah, and it's funny, you bring up some of these names, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio before, Gio Bernard. Everybody wants to play with 12. Everybody wants they come down and try to get one with Tom Brady. So it's always helpful. Mm-hmm. Looks like weather might be in the conversation this weekend. You've gotten used to that Tampa weather, Rob. Some rain in the morning. It's going to be windy, 20, 30 degrees. Does that help the Eagles who want to pound the football?
That's strange because I was going to the game last Sunday, and it's January, last game of the season. It's 82 degrees. I'm going, man, like I thought it was obnoxious. I'm like, it's 82 degrees, week 18 of the regular season. Like, at least give me 60. And here we are, playoff game, and we're going to have that 60, 62, but a little bit of the rain, a little bit of the wind. But here's the thing that I've learned down here in Florida. Whatever the forecast says isn't necessarily, it's not going to, it could tell you it's going to rain all day and you don't see any of it. You don't see a drop, or you see it for 5 minutes. But if you indeed do have some rain, some wind, if that's going to affect the passing game. Now, Tom Brady's played through these in Foxborough with New England. He knows how to handle what the wind's going to be like and all of that. I think he can deal with Florida weather compared to Gillette Stadium up at Foxborough. So I don't think it's going to impact him. But for the Eagles standpoint, hey, if it's going to make Nick Sirianni focus even more on running the football, especially if they get stopped early in the first quarter and things aren't going well, but he doesn't turn away from it and he sticks with it. I think that's where you're going to have to find your success. As tough as it is to run on Tampa, if you continue to wear them down, if you continue to go at them, I think part of the reason why the Buccaneers are 3rd in the NFL in run defense is a little bit skewed. Yes, they do have Vita Vea, and they're a great run-stuffing team, but teams also don't run on them as much because you're losing and you're playing catch-up, and now you have to throw against them in the second half, so you abandon the run game against Tampa, and that allows them to give up 85, 90 yards a week because teams aren't even trying to do that.
82 for a playoff game? Yeah, when you were going to playoff games at the Vet and the Link, you would get the only 82 was potential hot dogs consumed by John McMullen in the press box. That was the only time you saw 82. Question on injury, guys not going to play for the 49ers. He used to be with the 49ers, the Bucs on Sunday. Richard Sherman, at this stage of his career, I know they reached out, had to pull him off the scrap heap and plug him in because they had so many injuries and COVID issues with their D-backs this year. He anything more than a placeholder? Is he going to be missed this Sunday, or is he just another body that the Tampa have to come up with a replacement for?
Yeah, on the field, he's not going to be missed because he was hardly here. He played 5 games. He didn't do much. He didn't get an opportunity. And in a couple of those games, he was still fresh off the street trying to feel his way, get back into a rhythm of playing football. But I've actually been pleasantly surprised with what he's brought to the team off the field as far as a player coach type, as a guy who's been a mentor to some of those younger players. They've had a banged up secondary throughout the course of the season. They've gotten healthy over the past month of the season, but he's going to be on the field, I'm sure, on the sideline, not on the field, but on the sideline, kind of as an extra coach for those guys. And that's something that he's an extra dimension that Richard Sherman has brought that I wasn't anticipating. I wasn't expecting that from him. We know he's a smart guy, Stanford guy, and we know he's a very intellectual type. And a lot of people sometimes get caught up into the extracurriculars with Richard Sherman. But from that leadership standpoint, he's brought that to the Bucs, and that's basically what he is at this point of his career.
Rob, you mentioned Mike Evans being one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL. To me, Antoine Winfield Jr. is one of the most underrated players in the NFL as a whole. He wasn't there for the first Eagles game at Lincoln Financial Field. What does he bring to that defense on the back end?
Yeah, and also, John, Carlton Davis, I think, is somewhat of a guy who's underrated defensively in that secondary. But Antoine Winfield Jr. is a guy who you saw him making big plays last year in the playoffs. Jordan Whitehead a couple weeks ago against the Jets had a big monster game. But Winfield, to me, is a guy who is going to be able to help. I don't know how they're going to go necessarily about trying to contain Dallas Goedert, but he's going to be involved in that. And they do have a tremendous group of linebackers, although Levante David's been out for a few weeks and they're going to need him to come back. But when you look at Winfield and how his presence in the secondary's kind of been a little stabilizing for the Buccaneers. And I just thought that not having him in that first matchup was something that was tough for them. And you saw after they built a good lead against, 21-7, 14-0, 21-7. And the game we thought the game was out of hand. And it comes down to Derek Barnett's penalty, right? Was that against? Yeah, it was against Fournette, Leonard Fournette. Yeah, one of those ticky right? And that allowed them to continue to extend the drive, keep the ball, run out the clock. And that's how close the Eagles got. But I think that whole secondary, Sean Murphy-Bunting, Carlton Davis, Jordan Whitehead, Antonio Winfield Jr., the whole group might be underrated. And Winfield, to me, stands out back there.
Rob, guy who may or may not play a role in the game on Sunday, but I remember last year noting a couple of big plays that he made. I was actually kind of surprised when they brought Antonio Brown in because I thought this individual could do the role of the third wide receiver that Antonio Brown was going to be tasked to do. And that was Scott Miller. Mm-hmm. He's been a non-factor this year, some injury issues, but even when he's played, he hasn't been a part of their regular wide receiver rotation. I know he made a big play last week on a running play, which he's never been a runner, but they're giving him the ball now on specialized, get it in his hands type plays. I assume he's healthy because he played last week and made a big play. Could he be a factor in Sunday's game for the Bucs?
Yeah, and he's even been at times a healthy inactive, which surprised me because we all saw the deep ball he caught against the Packers in the NFC title game. But he's got some speed. Last week they used him on a couple running plays late in the game when it was a blowout, and they put it away, and he scored a touchdown. He's somebody who can be sneaky fast, and there's some familiarity with him and Brady. He knows he can go to him to make a big play. But right now, he's kind of like, even when Godwin and Brown were here, he was off the depth. He was so far off the depth chart, he was buried. And now without them, it's Evans, Tyler Johnson, Brashard Perriman, Cyril Grayson if he's healthy, and then Scotty Miller. So he's going to be up. I'm sure he's going to be up, but it's a matter of, is he going to get his targets? Is he going to get his opportunities? But he's a guy who may only see the ball 3 times and make a big play on one of them.
Rob, the guy tasked with stopping Tom Brady, first and foremost, Jonathon Gannon, is getting a little interest around the NFL. The Denver Broncos put in a request to interview him to be their next head coach. You and I were both on the conference call with Jonathon. He he did confirm that the request came in. You asked him, when is he going to interview? He kind of begged that off. Jonathon doesn't like to talk about this kind of stuff. But you're here enough, and you're at enough Eagles games to know there's sort of this disconnect. Eagles fans are not in love with Jonathon Gannon. The league seems to be more in love with Jonathon Gannon. Why is there that disconnect?
Wait, you mean Eagles fans don't appreciate what they have sometimes? Andy Reid. No. Yeah. Nick Sirianni, let's fire him because he made a flower. Now, Jonathon Gannon, I think, is a guy who has been throughout the season. I mean, John, I think you identified him early on as a potential head coaching candidate. And here he is, year one as a defensive coordinator. He's getting an opportunity for an interview. I don't think he's going to end up getting that job. I think there's familiarity with him and some of the people in the Denver Broncos. But he's a guy who started off here rough. And when you get off to a first impression in Philly isn't good, sometimes it's hard to recover from that. But I think over the second half of the season, as players got more familiar and comfortable with his system, they started to have more success defensively. But also, let's not forget that in the second half of the season, they're facing Jake Fromm and whoever was the quarterback for Washington,
Garrett
Gilbert, and they weren't going up against Derek Carr, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott. At one point through those first 7 games, the Eagles were on pace to set a record for worst completion percentage by opposing quarterbacks. It was in the 74+% range. They finished at 69. So after 7 games, when it's 74, over the last 10, they finished at 69. So it must have been like closer to 63, 64, 65 over those last. So it had to do with the quality of opponent. And I think that some people obviously realize that, and Eagles fans are smart enough to realize and recognize that. So I think Jonathon Gannon's a guy who is going to get appreciation across the league, but it is one of those who's going to be tough until the Eagles say, hey, if they come out this week, they find a way to shut down Tom Brady, they win a 17-14 game, you have you have to absolutely give all the credit to the defense then in Jonathon Gannon if you do that. And I think maybe that's how he'll get his appreciation. I don't know when he wouldn't, like he said yesterday, he wouldn't tell us much about that interview or when he's got to sit down with Howie and Nick and talk about it. And I get that. I appreciate that. But I think it's one of those where he's going to get that interview, but he'll still eventually be here for at least another year.
All right, Rob, multiple choice question for you. We'll make it easy. And I know the answer is chances are all of the above, but I'm going to ask you to put one on top of the pile. The individual who will be most often tasked, and I know Jonathon Gannon wants to mix it up, but somebody at the end of the day is going to have the call on it more than the others. Most often tasked to try and stop Rob Gronkowski. Is it Avonte Maddox? Is it Rodney McLeod? Is it TJ Edwards? Is it Alex Singletary? Is it other? Who's going to draw the assignment most often of having to stop the big guy in the middle of that Tampa offense?
Avonte and TJ Edwards. I hope it's not Alex Singleton, because that can get ugly. that could turn into a Kittle game if it's. It could turn into a 15 for 185 game, and I think that's what the Bucs got to do is try and get really, because you look at Evans and I would assume, even though Jonathon Gannon wasn't going to say, you would put Darius Slay, you'll put Slay on Evans and try and take him out of the game, and then they don't have, if Godwin and Brown were there, then you would need Avonte Maddox on the slot guy, and that was Antonio Brown and sometimes CG. But in this case, you could probably free up Maddox to go on and try, and you might have to double team Gronk at times. And
I think they're going to run a lot of two tight end sets, Rob.
Yeah,
you're going to see a lot of 12 and 13 out of the Bucs on Sunday.
Yeah, great. This is a Gronk game. This is a game where I think you look at the matchups, you look at the Eagles linebacker core, and that's a matchup that the Tampa's got to feel really good about. And I think we get Gronk today, and he won't say anything about that. He's kind of learned. He's been Brady-fied. He knows not to put anything out there. He knows not to say anything that's going to be bulletin board material. He'll praise the heck out of the Eagles defense, just like Tom Brady will and has already, and Bruce Arians and everyone else. But I think they got to be looking at that matchup. Who's going to stop Gronk? Whether it's Maddox, Singleton, Edwards, whoever the Eagles throw at him, the kitchen sink, he's going to have his time.
Well, I think you're right, Rob. It's a Gronk game. If you look at it from the Eagles' perspective, offensively, what kind of game is it? Is it a Dallas Goedert game? Is it a Devontae Smith game? Or is it a Jalen Hurts game in the running game? Because that's the reason the Eagles sat Jalen Hurts in Week 18 against Dallas. They want him to be as close to 100% as possible to make sure he's that +1 in the running game. Do we need sort of an 80-yard Jalen Hurts rushing performance to be in this football game?
Yeah, I think a 60+ out of Jalen Hurts, and we've seen Tampa be a little bit susceptible to the running quarterback. Josh Allen, I think he went over 100 in that overtime game. If not, he was close to 100 against them. Now, Buffalo lost that game. Tampa won, but they had success. They pushed it into OT. So I feel like the Eagles got to do, and as Nick Sirianni said this week, like, you can't change who you are or what you do in the playoffs as opposed to what got you here. And they can't all of a sudden go back to trying to throw the ball 40, 45 times. They think they're going to have Miles Sanders and a healthy stable of running backs. Jalen Hurts had that week off so he can run the ball 8 to 12 times and try and get those 60, 65, 70+ yards. And that, to me, that's the way that the Eagles have to attack this game and try and win this game. Even if you have if you don't have success early in a football game, don't go away from it. Now, you may not have success early in a football game and look up at the scoreboard and be down 14-0 like they were the first matchup and they got away from it. But if you recall, in that first, they got back in it down 21-7 running the ball late in the game, in the third quarter, into the fourth quarter. And that's what they got to do. Hey, you got to get big plays. You got to get back in a football game. Sometimes Miles Sanders can pop off a 27, 28, 35-yard run or whatever it may be and get you back in the game. And I think they're going to have to rely on Jalen Hurts' legs here. And Dallas Goedert always, to me, is always somebody you're going to target heavily. And as good as Tampa is against tight ends and as strong as their linebacker core, Dallas Goedert, he's one of the top in the league. So he's going to find the ball come his way. And I feel Devontae Smith might be in for at least one big play. You got to try to get the ball to Devontae Smith because he can do so much with it. He's a guy who, and you get it to anywhere near him. We see him making leaping catch, tremendous catches, sideline grabs. And if you throw it up to him 10 times, I think he's going to come down in a 50-50 battle. He's going to come down with it more often than not.
All right, Maaddi, man, you've done a great job giving us some Tampa insight. I need one more from you. Mm-hmm. John and I talk about this basically every week. I have him text me from the press box when they have the coin flip because I know for a fact that Sirianni's going to win and he's going to defer. He just does it by rote. They're not, and
they all do.
Eagles win, they defer.
Yeah.
He sends me the text every week, and I appreciate it greatly. You got to give us the read on the Tampa coach. What happens if they win the toss? Are they a team that always plays to the analytics of you got to defer because you can get one extra position? Arians has always been a bit of a riverboat gambler and does things a little bit different. Tampa wins the toss. What are they doing?
They're deferring, and I actually was surprised last week against Carolina when there was talk that the starters wouldn't play in the second half. He deferred. I'm like, why are you deferring when you might be deferring to Blaine Gabbert coming out in the third quarter?
Good point. Smart man, Rob Maaddi. That's why you're the best.
Yeah, as it turned out, Brady played into the fourth quarter, and they didn't defer. They did defer, and Brady still played, and they got the ball. But yeah, I think it's just a way of the NFL. At least he's not going to go for every fourth down on his side of the 20 like that overrated coach in L.A., Brandon Staley.
Shout out Staley.
Well, I think there's 2 overrated coaches in LA, but that's another story.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
I'd take Doug Peterson over Sean McVay every day of the week.
Yeah. Last one from me, Rob. I've been calling it the Rob Maaddi Bowl. It's Rob Maaddi week. You brought up the Ric Flair reference yesterday.
Woo!
To be the man, you got to beat the man. I'll see you in Tampa this weekend. Who's going to win the football game? Who's going to win the Rob Maaddi Bowl?
So I actually had picked the Eagles in the Week 6 game. They covered, but I thought it was a trap game for Tampa. I thought that they would come in on a short week, a Thursday night, and the Eagles would find a way to sneak that one out. This week is going to be tough. It wouldn't shock me if the Eagles stay close in this game and make it a field goal at the end. Ryan Suckup has to win a game coming back, where Tampa Bay still got some guys coming back, Leonard Fournette, Levante David, and trying to feel their way in their first playoff game. But you're going again. It's Jalen Hurts' first, as you said at the top, Jalen Hurts' first NFL playoff game against the guy who's playing in, what is it now? Number 46. Number 46. He's won 7 Super Bowls. He's the greatest of all time. I don't think he's just the greatest of all time in football. I think of any team sport, what Tom Brady's done at 44 to lead the NFL in passing and all those statistical categories this year. I believe he probably should be the MVP. I know Aaron Rodgers is close and they're right there, and it should be 1-2, and you can't factor in all the vaccine stuff that people are doing with A-Rod. But when you got number 12 back there at home against the 7 seed, you got to win this game. So yeah. I'll take Tampa, but I'll take the Eagles to cover the 8.
Okay, competitive game.
By the way, Rob, before you jump in, Jody, sorry, 12,500 passing yards in the playoffs, 83 touchdowns, I think. It basically 3 full seasons, 3 good seasons, and just playoffs for Tom Brady.
So he's really 47 is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
It could be. Now you forced me to ask you one more question. I know that you've taken the national gig, so you got to fly to do your work these days, unlike just getting in a car and driving down to the NovaCare complex like you did for years. Doug Peterson going to make it easy on you? Just shoot down Alligator Alley to go talk to him, take over the Dolphins? Or is he going to be coaching a little further north that you're going to have to get on a plane to go talk to Dougie P?
Yeah, I would like to see, Jody, I would like to see Doug in Minnesota. I would love to see if Doug can get that gig with the Vikings and see how when you give him Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, who he didn't end up with 2 years ago, and got Jalen Reagor and Kirk Cousins for at least a season. I would like to see that. I don't know if Minnesota is going to go in that direction. Jacksonville's also somewhat attractive with Trevor Lawrence, but that they've always had they need a Doug Peterson because their culture is such a losing culture. It would be interesting to see what he could do in Miami with Tua. Would Tua be a Doug Peterson guy, or would he not be? Would he want to go in a different direction there? I do think he's going to get a job, the Chicago Bear job. He's going to interview there. My choice for Doug would be, I'd really like to see him in Minnesota, but I would certainly take him in Jacksonville or Miami so I can head on down there a whole lot easier. That's for sure.
Make that trip a little easier on Rob Maaddi. Exactly.
Give me something to root for.
All right, Maaddi, man, as always, a great job. You can read him on Associated Press. Check out his syndicated show, Faith on the Field. Always a pleasure, Rob. Enjoy the game on Sunday. McMullen will buy you a free hot dog. I would, too, if I were there. Enjoy, bud. Thanks.
Thanks, pals. Appreciate it.
That is Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press here with us on Birds 365. All right, coming down the home stretch, J-Mac coming back right here on Birds 365.